So recently I watched Matt Diavella's I Used a Flip Phone for 30-Day video, and that's inspired me to make this video. I really like the content that Matt puts out. At the end of that video, I'm not sure I agreed with his conclusion. He said that using a smartphone really didn't make him happy at all, but he couldn't really see himself living without the benefits that a smartphone brought to his life. If you'd like a practical guide of how I've gone through the same experience but come out with a very different end result, please stick around for the video. At the beginning of his video, Matt says that he uses his smartphone as his GPS, his music player, his messaging device, his camera, and he says it makes phone calls too. However, there's a big issue he points out, which is that it's making him totally miserable. Now that's something I get too. I think for me, it makes me miserable and probably Matt miserable because it's constantly there. And it can be quite addictive. It's in your pocket, it's on your table, it's in your hand. And because it does so much, because there's so much there, if you've got 5 minutes spare, 2 minutes spare, no minutes spare, then you can be tempted to use your phone, look at YouTube, look at whatever it is. Matt said that his usage stats were 2 to 3 hours a day. Mine was similar. And if you think about it, 2 to 3 hours a day where it might not be the most productive time that you can find, but it certainly could add to your productivity. But more importantly, if you did nothing else, you could just get the opportunity to think. So I'm making this video because at the end of Matt's video, he says even though his smartphone is making him miserable, he doesn't know if he can live without it. Now I've gone through over the last month or so a very similar experiment to Matt. Well, it was an experiment because I didn't know if I'd be able to do it past 30 days. I was nervous, I was apprehensive. At the end of the time I thought I'd be allocating to it in the first month, it's something that I'm going to continue day to day. I'm very happy with, and I want to talk about in this video how my strategy has differed from Matt's. So I'm going to give it away before I go into the details of each of the different areas. The difference is Matt completely gave up his smartphone, whereas I, importantly, moved my SIM card from my smartphone into my candy bar phone. So day to day, phone calls and data only go to my dumb phone. However, I left my smartphone fully charged. And that makes a huge difference in how Matt struggled and I have not had the same issues that he did. And in this video, I'm now going to explain each of those areas in detail. I'm going to start off with phone calls. And actually, this is really important because this is not something you have to worry about at all. These dumb phones are absolutely brilliant at making phone calls. They're just there, they're a better size for most of us than smartphones anyway. They're easier to hold. I'm not going to go into any details about the phone that I'm using, but if you want to know more, I've done a review on the phone that I'm using, and I'm going to put it somewhere up here. I can't quite tell you which side, I think because I'm filming this into a camera and I can't work out where it is, but it'll be somewhere up there and I'll leave a link in the description. But if you've got any apprehension about using these phones for phone calls, don't. They're brilliant. So in my head, a traditional phone does two main things. It makes phone calls and it is your primary messaging device. And unfortunately, these phones are rubbish at messaging. Now, whether it's my memory and sort of texting back 15 odd years ago on a keypad with numbers and letters, when everyone was doing it, it seemed all right. I think we got muscle memory, we got used to it. Either the experience has got worse or it just seemed better 15 years ago. Using these phones day to day to type anywhere near a long message practically is a real pain. The main reason I've been able to get around this though is a lot of the services that I use don't need to go through my phone. So I do get the occasional text messages, but actually most of my messages are either via WhatsApp. You can have services like Telegram, you have iMessage separately, and almost all of those services can be accessed via a computer, via your iPad, via a web service somehow. And if they can be, you've then got access to them to use a keyboard. So one of the advantages is you're not constantly getting bombarded with messages. Yes, the phones, a lot of them will allow you to receive messages if you've got an urgent need of one. But in terms of peace of mind and practicality, this allows you to batch your communication and is actually an improvement over a smartphone keyboard because you can replace that with a real keyboard. So as long as you've got access to a laptop, to an iPad, to some sort of computer and keyboard, there's most of the ways you can certainly deal with the messaging and not make it an issue. For me, actually, I've kept WhatsApp with my smartphone as the primary hub. So WhatsApp is really useful. They have a web app and you can use your smartphone. I leave mine typically at my house, and typically whether at the office or out and about, I can still access WhatsApp remotely. But if you keep your smartphone, then you can still use WhatsApp on your smartphone. The number will be still linked there. So as long as you keep your smartphone, you don't need it on you all the time, you can still use most messaging services without having to rely fully on the rubbish keyboard and the rubbish messaging experience. So next I'm going to talk about music players. In all honesty, I have been listening to less music as I've switched over to this more basic phone. However, as I've said previously, I'm still got access to my smartphone. It's still charged. I typically use Spotify, as so do about 100 million other people. And because of that, I can still get my phone and use it as a music player, be that in the house, be it in the car, it's still there. Now, for me, and with a lot of other ways, you can download the music you want to listen to. So you haven't got data signal if you haven't got a SIM card in your smartphone, but actually that's part of the point of getting away from it. But if you can download the music you want to listen to on your phone, then actually it's a great portable media player, be it with headphones, be it wherever it is. And it almost works better because then you can listen to your music, but you won't get any distraction calls, any distracting texts. If you're looking for a music player, smartphones are great for that purpose. And for me, I haven't changed that when I need to listen to music or want to listen to music. So that's one of the massive differences I made, is I'm still using my smartphone as my music device. With regard to a GPS, I'm really lucky because I've got a GPS built into my car. Lots of other people have. So look, if you've got a GPS built into your car, then you shouldn't need to have it in your smartphone. Notwithstanding that, I'm used to using Google Maps as my sat nav of choice. So this is what I tested out before making this video. I thought it was going to be the case, but I thought let's just work it out for sure. You can still use your smartphone as a GPS device without data. So there is one big drawback, which is you won't get live traffic data. Now, in lockdown, when roads are quieter, for many of us, that's less of an issue than it has been historically, but I'm sure the roads will get busier again. The important thing is in Matt's video, he ended up printing off directions, and if you don't know where you're going, a sat nav is a true lifesaver, truly makes life that much easier. So what you can do with most smartphones now, certainly with Google Maps, is download a map of an area, and then the GPS in the phone doesn't need any data to work. So as long as you look for where you're going, then you can still use your phone as your sat nav, and that doesn't need to change. Now, when I was testing this out, my car has Android Auto in it, and the phone still connects to the car as Android Auto, so I still had Google Maps and Android Auto working absolutely fine. So the only thing that I was losing was that live traffic data. Now, I haven't tested that with an iPhone, but I don't see any reason why Apple's car system, Apple CarPlay, will work any differently. So very little for me needs to be lost in terms of just losing that data. I'm sure once the roads are back to normal, I'll be frustrated because I will lose, I'll get stuck in some traffic I wasn't expecting, but we're all talking about trade-offs here. It's about making life easier versus making your life happier and better. So for me, that huge difference is if you use your phone as your sat nav, I'm going to say don't stop using your phone as your sat nav, just use it without the SIM, without data. Finally, Matt says that he really misses having his phone as his camera. He says it's what he takes most of his pictures on when he's out and about, and he's scared that if he made this change for a long period of time, that he'd lose memories, that he'd lose that opportunity to take pictures. And I totally agree with Matt. Phones are absolutely excellent cameras, but really boringly and really sort of obviously, I'm going to say the same thing that I've said for previous fixes, which is still use your phone potentially as your primary camera. Now, some of you will, again, like some of you will have sat navs, like some of you will have other ways to get around these things. Some of you will have dedicated cameras that you take out. And I'm sure Matt has dedicated cameras, but there's nothing much better, much easier than having a slim smartphone in your pocket you can just pull out and take those pictures. Now, one major thing, if you're going to make this change, is you will not always have your phone in your pocket for those moments you always want to take. But when you're going to go out, when you know there might be an opportunity to take photos, that you want to record a video, just take your phone with you. Again, the battery life will be better because it won't be used for other things. It should have no impact on the camera quality, and it's just there. It takes a little bit more planning, a little bit more thought, but if you've already got a smartphone, if it's already providing you a decent enough camera, you don't need to get rid of it. You don't need to stop using it. For me, not having that data chip, not having that constant flow of information, not being able to pull it out, not being able to look at social media, but still being able to use it as a dedicated camera in effect is really, really useful and just makes everything easier. So that's how I've got around the camera issue, which is if I think I'm going to want to take a picture, I've just got my phone with me and I'll take it, use it as a camera, use it as a video recorder. It's as good as it ever was. What Matt didn't say at the beginning of the video that he uses his phone for, but he did go into one of the difficulties he found towards the end of the video, was notes and documents. Actually, he talked about going on a trip and needing to print out all his visas and all his documents. He mentioned shopping lists. But again, you can use your phone for all of those things. You can download documents onto your phone. You can essentially use it as a glorified PDF viewer if you're going on a trip. If you need it as a shopping list, then just use it over Wi-Fi to set all those things up in the shopping list. Take it out, as long as it's in a note-taking app or something that doesn't need the internet. And if your current system does need the internet, then find something that doesn't. You can go into the shop, you can tick things off. It's actually really useful. I still use my phone, have done for a long time, for shopping lists. But if you're sort of using it there, saying, look, I'm going out to the shops, I need to take my shopping list. For me, grabbing that phone, so you're out there, it can't really be used for much else other than the shopping list because you haven't got access to data. You can't use it for social media, and you know you've taken it out just to use it as a shopping list. So a lot of those document issues that he really struggled with, a lot of the day-to-day practical issues that he struggled with, even if you need it in your pocket just to take notes. But a lot of my experience has been, if you can't use your phone to do as much, it is still good at what it was good at. So if it's taking notes and you say, look, I can't, taking it on paper, transposing it onto a computer at a later date isn't as practical, then you can still use your phone to take notes. You can put it in your pocket, but it's not going to be as useful as it was. And that whole experience has really helped me. So when Matt finished his video, he said at the end of that video, we trade our happiness for convenience. But he said he can't imagine not going back to his smartphone for the convenience that is offered. And what I'm suggesting, the method I've gone down, is a halfway house. To keep the convenience that the smartphone gives, but take away a lot of its power. Take away some of that convenience, but not all of it. Use it as a utility. Use it as a camera, use it as a GPS if you need to, use it at the shops as a shopping list, but don't give the smartphone all of the power that it currently has. Get yourself a dumb phone. Get yourself a phone where you can go out the house, still make phone calls, and at the end of a 30-day trial on that basis, maybe you'll come to a conclusion more like me, that actually it's not that difficult to live dedicated to your smartphone that you know is making you unhappy, but you can make some changes that allow you to feel more in control. And certainly, at the end of my experiment, I feel a lot more in control of my life and a lot happier. So I hope you found something really useful in this video. Certainly, if you're considering this yourself, I hope this has given you some tips that you can take into growing your life, growing your digital minimalism, and going through your own journey. If you found this useful, I hope you hit that thumbs up button, and if you'd like to join me on my YouTube journey, please hit subscribe. Until next time, I've been Alex. Thanks.